So, what's your definition of memory?
What's your definition of memory?
What is your definition of memory?
What's your definition of memory?
What's your definition of memory?
Memory to me is like the ability to recall something, the ability to recall something. Memory.
Definition of memory is just, the things that you remember. Just pretty simple.
My definition of memory, I would say it's like storage kind of based on how you associate certain things. Like if you have an emotional connection to something, it might be deeper versus if it's just kind of like a topical thing, like a fact, it can fade away pretty easily.
I guess it would be you just having a stored record in your brain of what happened or what you remember.
Memory is a recollection of the things that you've done and experienced with other people or just you yourself.
My definition of memory would just be special moments that I remember, that I have lived with people that I can just think about.
Whatever you retain, maybe like subconsciously or consciously.
I would say something that you could always go back to and feel some type of nostalgia.
So, what exactly is memory? As we saw, some students said it was a moment in time and a feeling that is captured to be remembered, while others described it as just information. For students, memory plays a crucial role in how we retain what we study and recall it later, specifically during exams or even assignments. Developing good memory techniques is a key to effective studying and academic success. Memory, to us at least, is the retention of information or experience over time, more specifically, using these three processes: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the process by which information gets into your memory storage. Storage is how information is retained over time and represented in your memory. Meanwhile, retrieval is the process that occurs when information that is retained in your storage comes out. These three are the main processes of memory, as memory is not just memorizing things, but it is also how your brain stores that information that you've gathered and uses it.
Encoding. So how does information get into your memory? This is where encoding comes in. Encoding is the process by which information gets into your memory storage. Stages of encoding. To begin encoding, you would need data. So when you listen to a lecture, watch a play, or talk with a friend, you are encoding information into memory. Some information gets into memory automatically, whereas encoding other information takes effort. You also have to pay attention to the given information. Levels of processing. Another factor that influences memory is whether we engage with information, superficially, shallow processing, or, if you really get into it, deep processing. A way to improve encoding is through elaboration. Elaboration refers to the formation of several different connections around the stimulus at any given level of memory encoding. When we elaborate during encoding, we develop many mental connections between the new info and what we know. Basically using references to remember something practical or self-referencing, if you will. So thinking of concrete examples of a concept is a good way to understand it. Study habits. When it comes to studying, students often look for ways to improve their memory retention. In interviews about study habits, many students shared that writing notes is one of their main strategies. Taking notes helps reinforce the material, making it easier to recall later. Combining imagery with note-taking, such as visualizing concepts while writing, can further strengthen memory and understanding.
But what study habits were our peers actually using? What better way to find out than by asking them ourselves?
First, I like to start with, what's your name?
My name's Chase.
Julia. Nice to meet you.
Matthew Island.
Nice to meet you, Matthew.
My name's Lily. Nice to meet you. First question, how do you study?
Usually alone in my room with some music or something like that.
I review my notes very frequently, as for the night before, the morning of, and right after my test.
I sometimes use a whiteboard to just write down for a classes and stuff, or sometimes just look over notes.
Mainly it's only like a couple of days or maybe like a week before a test. I make sure to take out the notes and just read through them. I'm pretty good with auditory learning, just like write down too, and that's about it.
Are they handwritten notes or typed notes?
Handwritten,
Do you believe that you memorize things better handwritten than typed?
for sure.
Yeah. Do you use notes?
Yeah, mostly notes and like online sources and stuff.
Are they handwritten notes or typed notes?
Kind of a combination, but mostly handwritten, I think.
Do you think your handwritten notes help you memorize things a little bit more than your typed notes?
Yeah, I would say.
Do you ever copy down what you have typed?
Yes, yeah, I've definitely done that before.
Does that help a lot?
Because it's like I get to reorganize it myself. Yeah, I've done that before.
Do you ever type your stuff, or is it all handwritten?
Handwritten.
Handwritten, okay. And do you think that helps you memorize things more?
Yeah.
They're all handwritten. I don't use computers.
Do you think having them handwritten makes you memorize things better than if you were to type them, per se?
I mean, it feels more personal when I write them.
Memory storage refers to the process of keeping information over time for later use. According to the Atkinson-Shiffrin theory, sensory memory is time frames of a fraction of a second to several seconds, short-term memory is time frames up to 30 seconds, and long-term memory is time frames up to a lifetime. Think of these systems as storage areas that work together to organize and retain information. Sensory memory is a brief storage information in humans where an information is momentarily registered until it is recognized and perhaps transferred to short-term memory. This can include sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Echoic memory and iconic memory are two types of sensory memory. Echoic memory, from the word echo, refers to auditory sensory memory. Imagine standing in an elevator with a friend who asks, "What was that song about the tune that had just ended?" If your friend asks the question quickly enough, you might just have a trace of the song left on your sensory registers to answer. Iconic memory, from the word icon, which means image, refers to visual sensory memory. Short-term memory is limited in capacity, is a temporary workspace where information is stored briefly for immediate use. There are two ways to improve short-term memory. They are chunking and rehearsal. Chunking involves grouping or packing information, and it works by making large amounts of information more manageable. Chunking by recoding can be seen as an example of data compression, kind of how you zip a folder to make it easier to transport and save on space. Rehearsal, the conscious repetition of information. It works best if needed to remember briefly. Long-term memory is a permanent type of memory that stores huge amounts of information for a long time. It is divided into substructures of explicit and implicit memory. We conducted a survey to understand how often people forget material shortly after learning it. The results revealed that 76.9% of respondents indicated that they sometimes experience this issue, while 23.1% reported that they often face this challenge.
Memory retrieval takes place when information that was retained in memory comes out of storage. You might think of long-term memory as a storage room filled with labeled boxes. Retrieving information is like finding the right box and opening it to get what you need. To access something from your mental data bank, you search through your memory to locate the relevant information. Cues. A retrieval cue can include a visual image, key terms, a verbal prompt, or anything that helps memory to be retrieved from long-term memory. The key to good retrieval is developing effective cues, ones that will lead the rememberer back to the encoded information. A certain smell can act as a reminder of a favorite childhood meal, or using the previous example, labels or directions to help you to locate the box. Understanding how retrieval cues aid memory can greatly enhance study habits. By incorporating effective cues, students can improve, recall, and retain of information. Proper study habits, such as understanding the material and information that is organized and makes sense to you, is easier to memorize. If you find that you don't understand the material, spend some time to understanding it before trying to memorize it.
Or associating and making a connection. When you associate new info with something you already know, your brain forms stronger natural pathways, making it easier to access that information for another time. Sleep on it. Studies have also shown staying up all night to study is one of the worst things students can do for their grades and their memory. In October of 2019, 2 MIT professors found a correlation between sleep and test scores. The less students slept during the semester, the worse their scores were.
How much sleep do you get before a test, and do you think that affects your memorization?
Like 6 hours. Probably. Yeah, it would affect it if I got a little more sleep.
It depends. I'm doing that before, but usually about 6 to 8 hours, average in between.
And do you think if you got more or less, that would like affect how you do on that test, like memorizing?
Oh yeah,
things?
if I get like at least 8 hours, I think that'll for sure help.
I think 8 hours, and so that would get back sleep.
So have you ever gone into a test with less than 8 hours and thought that affected your memory at all? Or no?
Yeah.
Probably around 6, maybe 5.5.
And do you think if you got more sleep, that would help with your memory? Or?
Most definitely. There's a stark difference in like how I feel between 6 hours of sleep and 8.
It was also found that both longer sleep duration and better sleep quality leading up to the day of the exam were more beneficial than a night before the exam. Use distributed practice to move information from working memory to long-term memory. Make it memorable and repeat it. Space methods like flashcards and self-testing out over several days. Gradually increase the time between sessions to reinforce mastery and securely store concepts. Write it out. Studies suggest that writing by hand, as opposed to using a keyboard, enhances learning and memory. Grouping. Creating meaningful groups that simplify the material. Let's say you wanted to remember the names of 4 plants: garlic, rose, hawthorn, and mustard. The first letters abbreviate to GRHM, so you can connect that with the image of a graham cracker. Now all you need to do is remember the picture of a graham cracker, and the names of the plants will be easier to recall. Another helpful way to study is just talking to yourself. It may seem strange at first, but talking to yourself about material you are trying to memorize can be an effective memory tool. Try speaking aloud instead of simply highlighting or rereading the information in your head.
Retrieval failure. As we all know, human memory is imperfect. We at one point in our lives have forgotten something in our lives. But what exactly is forgotten? The first research on forgetting was by Hermann Ebbinghaus, where he made fake syllabus and tested how many could remember them. He concluded that forgetting mostly takes place right after we learn something. We can also forget something when encoding failure occurs, which happens when info never entered into long-term memory. Retrieval failure theory is where info is in the long-term memory, but because of the lack of retrieval cues, such information is inaccessible. Retrieval cues can be external, like environment, smell, or place, or internal, inside of us, physical emotion, mood, etc. A retrieval cue is a hint or clue that can help retrieval. Interference is another reason people forget. Interference theory is a theory where people forget not because memories are lost, but rather other information gets in the way.
Do you ever multitask while you're studying, like keep a show on the side, or you just focus?
Just the music. What's that in?
Just music?
Yeah, just music.
I listen to just background noises. So I guess like libraries and copying nature stuff.
No, I stay on topic. I already lose focus a lot whenever I'm doing any kind of work. So multitasking would be pointless for me.
No, I'm really bad at multitasking, so no.
So you just focus on what you're doing?
Yeah, I usually just focus.
Do you think that helps a lot more than like if you were watching a show on the side?
Yeah, if I was trying to do something else, I think it would confuse my brain. So yeah, probably.
Imagine a chicken trying to cross a road. The chicken represents the information you want to remember, and reaching the other side symbolizes successfully retaining that memory. But wait, cars are zooming by on the road. These represent other information with interfering with the chicken's journey, made it harder for the memory to stick. Now there are 2 kinds of interference, proactive and retractive. In proactive interference, older cars representing old information keep cutting off the chicken, making it harder for new information to cross the road and stick in your memory. In reactive interference, newer cars representing new information zoom by, blocking the chicken and preventing you from recalling older information already learned.
And I guess we'll see if you remember this in a couple months. Thank you and goodbye.